Let's talk more about how this law might work with Simon Spence. Simon is a QC and he's part of Red Lion Chambers, and he joins us now. Simon Spence, thank you very much for being with us. As a barrister, are there areas about this law and its application that cause you concern?
There are. I think what is important to bear in mind is that we are not talking about people convicted of murder, because people who commit murder, whether it's of police officers, emergency workers or anybody else, gets a mandatory life sentence. And that has been the law for many, many years. And for those that are convicted of murdering police officers, then they are very likely to get a whole life order already. What this new proposed law is about is giving mandatory life sentences to people convicted of a lesser offence, namely manslaughter. And that covers a very wide range of circumstances. And it runs the risk of a judge being straitjacketed as to the sentence they can impose when there's a very wide range of circumstances in which the offence is committed.
It's not surprising that, given the particular circumstances of this case, that Mrs. Harper should feel aggrieved by the sentence. I mean, she and her family suffered a terrible loss, and her husband must have died in agony. But presumably the law is about applying beyond the circumstances of a particular case to ensure everybody is treated with equity, at least. And is that part of the problem here, that they've gone from a particular case where, not least because of the age of the people involved, it complicated the sentence in question, to apply that in a generality?
Yes, I mean, at a human level, your heart goes out to Mrs. Harper, and what happened to PC Harper was truly appalling. But we can't lose sight of the fact that they were not convicted of murder. They were convicted of manslaughter. And the sentencing judge, who was a very experienced criminal judge, had to apply the sentencing guidelines which are set out for offences of manslaughter. And it's of note that the case was not referred to the Court of Appeal by the Attorney General, which could have happened if the sentences were considered too lenient. It's not for me to comment on individual cases. My concern,
I understand that, yeah,
is the restriction on the discretion of a judge to impose what he or she considers to be the appropriate sentence in an appropriate case, and the breadth of circumstances in which manslaughter can be committed rather than murder is very wide indeed. And to take an example, somebody who is mentally ill could be convicted of manslaughter as opposed to murder because of their mental illness. And under this new proposed law, rather than being protected in a secure psychiatric unit and provided with treatment, which is what would happen at the moment, they would instead go into the mainstream prison system and receive no help for their mental illness. And that seems to me a backward step.
And presumably that then would pose at least a potential theoretical danger to other prisoners and to prison staff, never mind the convicted person themselves.
Well, quite. And of course, under the proposed law, it's not just police officers, although we're focusing on PC Harper today, and rightly so. It applies to fire officers, prison officers, any emergency worker. And I think it's very important that, whilst acknowledging the fact that those categories of people need additional protection and there should be greater deterrent for assaults on people such as that, nevertheless, the courts have to retain a discretion to sentence in a just and fair way based on the facts of the case. And a one-size-fits-all sentence for such a wide variety of cases doesn't sit very comfortably with a fair and just sentencing process.
Thank you very much. Very good to talk to you there about that. And of course, this is, I should say, for people so that they are aware of this, is part of the Police Crime Sentencing Courts Bill. It's not actually in the legislation at the moment. It's an amendment the government will put forward, and obviously it'll be up to the House of Lords to see whether they vote in favour of it, and then ultimately, of course, MPs. Simon Spence, QC of Red Lion Chambers, thank you very much.